Last week, Todd Howard appeared on the Kind of Funny podcast where he answered a lot of questions about Starfield. We have a ton to go over here, so let's get started. The crew from the Xcast started the line of questioning off with talking about the Starfield Direct, and the question asked was, how do you go about creating a showcase like that?
It takes a lot of time. We've been fortunate enough to be able to give a lot of cool demos over the years going back. Fallout 4 was always a highlight for us to do that. We did a decent-sized Starfield demo last year at, I'll say, E3, the Xbox showcase. And I think at that time, maybe it was 12, 13 minutes for Starfield at the end. That had been the longest demo that Xbox had shown and got a great response. Going into it this year, we knew, hey, we want to give everybody a really deep dive look at the game and what's the best way to do that. And so we're really fortunate, I think, to have that opportunity to do that kind of following the Xbox showcase with Starfield Direct. And the response really was incredible. Hearing so many people and the feedback, everybody kind of rooting for us and loving what we've shown. You never know, right? We're heads down here in the studio, and it had been a while since we had really come out with that much stuff. You never know how people are going to react. It's a new IP. It's incredibly ambitious. We're taking a lot of risks. So really happy with the response. It's a lot of fuel to us here. I will say the thing that actually makes me most proud of it is by doing it in that format, we could highlight a lot of people on the team that fans don't know or haven't seen before. And look, there are hundreds more that we couldn't show in it, and sort of their passion for the project. They have all put so much into this game, and we just hope people love it as much as we do.
Obviously, putting on a showcase is not easy, and a lot ends up getting cut out for time's sake. Todd was right on the money, though, in that his team did an excellent job with producing this showcase by giving everyone what they wanted and leaving us wanting more. This brings us to the next question, which asks Todd to talk a bit more about the game outside of the main story.
Sure. I think if you look at all of our games, that kind of feeling is what we want, where you can look at the scope of the game and the sort of palette of things and menu of things you could do, and then say, what if? And then I'm going to go do these things. And I think that idea of being a space pirate, there's a whole faction for it, by the way, with the Crimson Fleet, or being a smuggler, or having contraband and shielded cargo, or taking over things, those are all things that we think about as well, and we want to find the best ways to enable that while it not feeling separate, while it fitting in part of the game itself. You see that in the video, I think, when you arrive at Jemison, where they actually do a contraband scan that you pass in that case. So a lot of really cool systems, and we do so many of them. I think what we really work on is how do all those systems come together and collide and create some really, really cool moments where the players, yourselves, have that agency to go really do what you want to do in the game.
One thing I've always loved about Bethesda games is that you are free to pretty much do whatever you want at any point. There is no time constraints, no gameplay choices to make that will prevent you from just going off and doing your own thing. As far as I can tell, this is something that we can expect in Starfield, but way more expanded in that you can conceivably never play or complete the main story. For me, this is a big bonus. I'm the kind of player who likes to do my own thing and establish who my character is before I jump into any sort of story. Todd gave us a great showcase, and his answer to this question really just reinforced what had been said or implied before. The next question went into the fact that accessibility settings is a big push for the Xbox, and the crew wanted to know what we could expect from Starfield in terms of this type of access.
Well, first, I think Xbox has done an incredible job there with everything they've done with accessibility and their controller in particular. You asked one thing that we're really leaning in on with this game is having a large font mode, which really is important in an RPG where there's a lot of stuff to read. So it comes into play with, obviously, for accessibility, but also various monitor sizes. I'm noticing that's really helpful when I play. There's a lot more handheld devices coming out where you can stream these games or sometimes even play them natively, and it really helps us there as well. So that's one in particular that we're leaning in on.
So there will be a large font mode in Starfield, which will certainly help those in need of this type of setting. Not a lot of games think about the font size as being a problem for gamers, but it certainly can be, so good on Bethesda for thinking about that. This led right into the next question, which is if Starfield is going to be a Steam Deck compatible game.
We'll talk about that later down the road. Yeah.
Obviously, Todd is not going to give us anything about future developments, though I would not be surprised to see this game make it to the Steam Deck or even another handheld device in the future. Our next question was about the character creation, specifically the unique traits and backgrounds we can use.
I think for us, we've done a number of games, obviously, over the decades that have various character systems. And I think we've learned a lot in terms of how does it feel when you start a game? What are those first choices like before you understand what the actual rules of the game are? That's always a trick to get right. And then how much depth does it have if you've playing for 20 hours or 50 hours or 100 hours or 500 hours? And so I think we've hit a real sweet spot with Starfield with giving you that flavor right out of the gate, where you are going to pick some starting skills with your background, but that also has flavor. People want to role play. They don't want to just see it as a list of numbers. You know, I'm a chef. Okay, what can a chef do? How does that factor into dialogue or other choices in the game? And then, so that's the backgrounds and the traits. It's a little bit of a original fallback, throwback to that, to Fallout, excuse me, and then say, these are optional. They come with positives, they come with negatives. And you saw some of that in the direct with the Adoring Fan and some other ones. The Parents is a really, really great one that we all love. So it lets you, if you're going to start over even, play the game in a different way.
Again, not a whole lot of insight here, other than they have expanded on some of the things they have used in the past and refined them as well. The question was then expanded on by asking about the ranking system and if he could give us more information about it.
Yeah, sure. Those, and what we've given ourselves there is a lot of flexibility and flexibility to the player. First, we have the visual, right? I actually love these patches, badges that can go on a spacesuit and how they unlock. And then they're tiered. So as opposed to being a strict kind of tree you have to go down, you can say, I want to focus in technology, and then the different tiers of skills will open up, and it gives you flexibility within that. There's 5 of them. You saw that in the direct. And we are finding here, what you always want is when people are talking about the game, that they're saying, did you know you can do this? Or they're comparing characters, and those character builds and those stories feel very, very unique for each person in that conversation.
Ever since the showcase, there has been a lot of speculation and misunderstanding of how the ranking system will work. To be honest, even after Todd's answer, some people were still getting it wrong. So, just to clear it up for everyone, the way the ranks will work is as follows. First, you choose your skill. That gives you the base skill or ability to do that thing. There are then 4 more ranks that can increase your ability to use said skill. Each rank will have to be unlocked by completing the task requirement related to that skill. Now, this is where people get confused. Completing the task does not rank up the skill. Instead, you will have to spend a skill point to rank it up. All the task does is unlock the ability to access the next rank. I hope this clears that up for everyone, because it is basically what was said in the showcase, but just wasn't focused on. The next question asked was about fishing.
Well, it depends on your definition of fishing. So is it collecting fish, killing fish, or is it specific to having
Is there some kind of rod that I can put into a lake and pull out an alien fish and then sell it or cook it or something?
That is one thing we do not have.
Okay.
I was not at all surprised by his answer, and to be honest, I'm glad that it doesn't have this. This game already has so much packed into it that we just don't need it. I get that some people might want that, and you know what? To that I say, this is what modders are for. The next question was a bit long-winded, but the gist of the question was asking about the 1,000 planets and how the procedural versus handcrafted content will work itself out.
I think that's, the million-dollar question as it comes to a game like this. It's a great question, one that we honestly struggled with early in the project. We wanted to do the planets because we like to give you that choice. Where do you want to go? You feel like you would want that choice in a game like this. And so first it was technically, could we pull it off? And, we did technically be able to, draw these planets, make them feel believable on the screen. Now, obviously, it's procedural. Okay, so there's no way we're going to go and handcraft an entire planet. What we do is we handcraft individual locations, and some of those are placed specifically, obviously the main cities and other quest locations. And then we have a suite of them that are generated or placed when you land, depending on that planet. Now, I'll also say for us, we view it as giving you, when you look at a system, here's the menu of things you could do. And like science, and we're pushing it, about 10% of those planets have life on them. Again, we're pushing it to the edge of what do people think, what planets are in that Goldilocks zone versus planets that have resources.
Right.
I think it is a moment when you land on some of these barren planets. And again, we will generate certain things for you to find on them. But if you look at a planet, you see the resources, it has things you want. There is, I love the Buzz Aldrin quote, the magnificent desolation. I think there's a certain beauty to landing on those and feeling I'm one of the only people or the only person to ever visit this planet. So it's a difficult design thing. If you add too many things, if it's generating too many abandoned bases or towers or things to find, it starts feeling too gamey in some of those locations. So I think we've dialed that in pretty well. Depending on the planet that you're on. And so we hope everybody enjoys it for what it is, but it is an exploration different than we've had, where you're landing, you're exploring around that landing spot, and then you're probably going somewhere else.
This is one point that has been misunderstood as well. I love that Todd was really able to clear it up. Many people thought that the planet would just be randomized and that each world would be different for each person. While this could be true in part, we did learn that whatever is found on said planet is tied to that planet, meaning the handcrafted content is on a list for the procedure to pull from for that planet. This means there are going to be lists for each world individually, and they don't swap in between. So what you find on one planet is not going to be on another. Same goes for the base procedure part. Each world has its own set of values and set things to generate. Not all planets will have life. As Todd pointed out, they have set that to be about 10% of the total number of planets, and those are located in the Goldilocks zones of each system. This is perfect because there does need to be that feeling of being alone to make it believable as a space game. He believes they have found the perfect balance, and based on what we saw, I think this is likely the case. The next question was also long-winded, but basically asked about the different biomes and how that will work as we explore the planet, i.e. if we just decide to go walk the planet, so to speak, and if we have to prepare our character for these differences beforehand.
There's a lot there, but I'll say, we have a lot of biomes. We do look at temperature, we look at the radiation, we look at all of those things on a planet so that your suit and your protection, you can get certain ailments if you're not ready, and certain weather things can come through with all of that. So there are obviously planets that might have one type of biome, and there are planets that have a whole bunch, and their creatures and the plants and everything go with the biome. So there's a whole part of the game where surveying a planet, like discovering all of the flora and fauna and resources. Planets also have traits, usually geological things that are inherent to that planet, and uncovering those. And if you fully survey a planet, that data is actually worth a lot of money, credits in the game that you can sell. So there's a whole part of the game that's really just doing that. It's a little more, I almost describe it Zen-like. You can get on a planet where the creatures there, some of them can be aggressive, where it can get dangerous if you're exploring the planet. And you can watch the creatures. We've actually had a problem at times with the predator creatures going and killing all of the more peaceful creatures you're coming across.
No.
Why are they all dead? And then you realize there's something dangerous in the area. So I would say this, that we do everything that you mentioned, and we really try to mix it up and spend a lot of time balancing that. So it is fun minute to minute, but you also know what you're getting into.
So Bethesda has really outdone themselves here. Not only are they giving us the ability to just go explore, but by adding in surveying, they are rewarding us for it. I am certain this is how I'm going to fund my fleet, because I love to explore. In each and every Fallout game, I have explored every inch of the map. I can only imagine how long it will take me to do that in Starfield. I may never sleep again. This discussion led to a follow-up question which asked about the creatures and if there was going to be one that was really special, like the Deathclaw for Fallout or dragons for the Elder Scrolls.
I mean, there's a few bad, there's one really bad one, there's a few, but you have to play it.
Todd kind of waffled a bit on that before giving up and not answering. This tells me that there is, but it is linked to something big in the game, and he did not want to reveal that. This, of course, brought us to the next question about vehicles and mounts, and if we were going to have this in the game.
There is not. We do design it. I think when we've seen this with our other games where we want to design it so it feels good on foot, but we do have the boost pack. You saw some of that in the video. And you have skills for the boost pack. So the boost pack almost acts like this vehicle. It's super fun where you can fly through. And then the low gravity planets are just really, really something special in the game.
This one has had a lot of speculation because of some of the concept work that was released early on. Todd's answer was not at all surprising to me just because of the level of detail that we already have been given in this game. Yes, we have the boost pack, and that is great and all, but we also have our ship, and I think that is enough for now at least. I am certain there will be some ingenious modders out there that will scratch this itch for those that want it. The next question was again long-winded. I'm starting to see a theme here, but I digress. It asked about companions and crew. It also asked if we would be able to play without them, and if they could choose to leave on their own.
Okay, a few ones there. First, the companions are awesome. Our team's done a really, really great job with them, and there's a lot of great depth there with the main companions. But we do support where, if you don't want to do that, there's traits that really make you, I want to play by myself. And then there's also skills that go into that give you special perks and bumps if you are solo. Them leaving on their own, they can, depending on the choices you make, they can get angry with you.
Yeah.
And then the relationship that you have with the companion can change based on the decisions you're making in the game.
If I get mad at my companions, Todd, can I space them and take them and make them walk the plank on my spaceship?
You can leave them behind. You can tell them where to go. You can assign them. You can assign them to outposts. You can assign them to ships that you're not using and things like that.
This was really interesting because we found out that we can play solo if we choose to do so. We also found out that what we do will affect how our companions react to us. There was a lot of AI implications in the question, and I'm happy to see that they can't just up and leave on their own. The last bit was just kind of funny. See what I did there? Anyway, so just like in previous games, our companions can be assigned to wherever we want to send them if we just want to get rid of them or don't care for their company anymore. Like Fallout 4, they are not able to be killed. I think this is because the companions are integrated into the main story in such a way that killing one or more would make it impossible to finish. The next question asked about the romanceable companions.
The 4 main constellation ones are the ones that support full quest lines for them and romance.
So this one was very interesting because we find that only the 4 main constellation companions are able to be romanced, and that they are the only ones with full quest lines at the moment. I imagine this will be expanded as DLC is released for the game in the future, kind of like Fallout 4 did. the next question asked if you could play a crew of just robots.
Technically, yes.
Okay.
It's so weird the
Awesome.
questions that people come up with.
Yeah.
Todd
Well,
creates
I-
some special
Technically,
games. Him
I don't
and his
want to
team.
oversell. I mean, there's Vasco, and then there's a few other things, but
Okay.
not
Looking
to
forward
the
that.
extent of the humans, obviously.
So we got a yes but kind of answer, which leaves me with more questions than we got answers for. One thing is for sure, it will be interesting to find out what he meant by that answer. The next question was really more of a statement in that it mentioned the fact that in a game of this size, there are challenges, and for every one thing that we can do, there will be 100 that we can't.
Well, look, that's what we do in the studio, right? When you're doing a game like this, or the games that we have done, we ask all the same questions.
Right.
And it's how do we say yes as much as possible? So actually, they're not like, should you fish? It took us a while. We finally added it to Skyrim, right? So
So there's hope. There is hope for space fishing down the road.
What's great about these kind of games, role-playing games in general, that they're not defined by a certain feature set.
Right.
Aside from the dog that started barking in the background, there really was not anything of real substance to latch onto, but it was still good to hear how Todd reacted to the statement nonetheless, because that is the very same process they go through in designing the game. The next question shifted the focus to music and how they implement that in a big open world game.
Well, actually, music is one of the first things that we start with when we make a game. We do concept art, and we start writing the music. I think the music for Starfield, the work that Enon Zur has done there is just incredible. It could be my favorite game music. And we did that very, very early. So when we're working on the game, we're looking at the concept art. The music is giving us all a feeling of what this world feels like, and what this experience feels like. How we do that in an open game is there is a whole system behind, like, what is happening, what's the mood right now, and then it is pulling from, a collection of tracks that fit that mood, and then segueing between them. And it might be easy to say, oh, you're just going to do this all the time, but the trick we find is actually when it has time to breathe, when the music actually kind of subsides for a bit, so that when it does come on and we're trying to hit a certain mood that you're in, it's impactful. I've also noticed, and happy to hear from all of you, but sometimes the music can come on and maybe it puts you in a mood. Like, oh, you're hearing this music, and then you're like, oh, I think I'm feeling I should do the following now. And then it puts you in a certain mood that you weren't in before. So we get some of that sometimes, not intentional, but it's not a bad thing.
Many of you may not have known this, but Bethesda has always been very music-driven, so much so that it is one of the first things that they do when creating the game. They want the music to set the tone for the game, and Starfield has some incredible music. Enon Zur is a fantastic composer, and I can't wait to hear everything that he has put together for us in Starfield's soundtrack. The next question asked if there was any chance of in-game radio stations like we have in Fallout.
There is one, but it is pretty much local to a certain location. It's not something you can dial into when you're away, but there is a little bit of that, I would say.
Cool. I love in-game radio.
So there is, but only in a certain area. Well, I guess there will be a mad dash to find it then. I bet it is local to one of the major settlements, though. Todd was then asked if he ever considered being one of the DJs for a radio station in-game.
No, I don't think that's for me. And actually, the last DJ we had in Fallout 4 is Brendan Hunt, who everyone knows as Coach Beard on Ted Lasso.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's incredible in the game.
No surprises there. I would have been very surprised if he had said yes. Todd, for all his quirks, does not strike me as the actor or radio show host type. The next question shifted to the ships and asked if the ships we capture are locked in with what they have at the time, or can they be upgraded?
They're all upgradable. They go through the same... We built those ships with the builder that you all saw in the direct. When you steal one, we do make you register it. If you want to modify it or use it in those ways, you have to spend credits to go register it. and that's for us to keep it from the economy kind of spiraling in those ways. You can fly it around, but if you want to mess with it, you register it, and then you go through that whole loop of upgrading it. I will say that that's a very deep system, and one that we expect for late game. It's not like you start the game and then you're going to get right into shipbuilding. It costs a lot of credits. It is, in a good way, a very complicated system, and one that it was more of a longer term thing in the game. You can easily upgrade your ship, like just go in and say, I want to improve these weapons. I want to improve the grav drive or the shields. That's very, very easy to do. But where you go in that mode and you break it apart and you're building, that is a whole mode onto itself that is more of a long-term play kind of thing.
So lots of good stuff here. For one, if you want to modify any ship, you will have to register it first. This is to keep the illusion of an in-game economy and also make it more realistic at the same time. We also learned that the shipbuilding is a late-game mechanic due to the fact that it is expensive to do so, and as a result, you will have to be further along in the time spent in-game. Todd stated that the system is complicated, but in a good way, meaning we will have a lot of freedom to really do what we want as long as we have the credits to do it. He did clarify that we can easily just upgrade certain aspects of our ship if we want to make it easier on ourselves, but the builder is where it gets complicated and goes in depth. This led right into the next question, which was about smuggling and what happens if we do that.
You'll have to wait and see.
No surprise here either. Of course Todd is not going to give that away, but I will give them an A for effort. Then they asked about how the interior is affected by the design process and what modules we can add.
Yeah, it comes with it. So you have these modules, and they come with the inner parts as well. And then when you click them together, and obviously you saw it, there are different modules for different things. So that gives the ships a really, really unique feel. And I'll say when we designed the game originally, when you go into sci-fi, we sort of start with what kind of spacesuit do we want? What does that look like? What do the weapons look like? And it took us a long time on ships because there's so many ships in games. And how do we do them where they look cool, but they feel believable, where you can draw the line from where we are today to these kind of ships while also allowing the player to build them. So that actually, along with the planets, was a big challenge for us, and we all love where it's ended up.
As we design our ships and choose what modules we want and where to place them, the interior layout of the ship will reflect that choice, and we will see that play out as we construct our ships. The next question asked about the tech lore and how Starfield will explain certain things like faster than light travel.
Definitely. I mean, we say grav drive here, but it stands for the graviton loop field array, the way the different bands bend space in front of you, and the more it can bend it, and you're actually taking space and you're folding it, you're bringing the space towards you. There's some great papers out there on like warp drives and quantum physics.
I was going to say, this is not dissimilar to warp drive, right, where you contract the space in front of you and expand the space behind you.
Technically, that's what it is. And we do get into, with the game, gravity and how that affects people in this universe, how they bend it, how they feel about that, and so forth. So we do a lot of interesting things there. But to your point, Gary, we did spend a lot of time originally. What is the fiction of this new universe that we're building, and how do we get from today to the tech level of this game and have that? It's still a video game, right? So I don't want to like overpromise or anything, but make that for the reality of this game feel believable.
I absolutely love that Bethesda has taken theories from the real world and integrated them into the game to give us the feel of realism. It is still a game, and so there is going to be a bit of artistic licensing that goes on, but they are making sure that it is in such a way that it still feels real. Staying on the topic of tech, the next question asked how the Creation Engine 2 utilizes today's tech, and is there something specific that he can point to and say, this helped us?
We are just so happy with the new engine. It took us so long to do. Our tech team, they're wizards, led by Chris Rodriguez and Joel Denault. And what we're able to do in the game and have all these things looking amazing and running from all of the items that we're simulating and people, spaceships, full planets. Our lighting model is just awesome. The real-time GI. We didn't really show this off, but I'd love to in the future, which is we have some great volumetric fog and how that interacts with the lighting. Then you get into the physics and we start messing with gravity. It gets even crazier. Our quest system, I think people are, there are a lot of open world games now, but I think what really makes ours different is that all these quests are running. It's not like you start a mission and we shut everything down. You can be on dozens of these at once. And that obviously it creates a lot of chaos sometimes in our games. We're aware of that, but it also creates these magic moments that we just love and our players love. And I think that's what's really, really special about it.
As we already could guess, there is a lot that the engine does well. Of course, there are some things that it struggles with, but like Todd said, it is what makes their games stand out from all the other RPGs out there. This led right into the next question, which was about the 30 FPS and if there was any discussion around maybe sacrificing something to get the higher FPS.
We never looked at taking features away. Our focus is on delivering all of that. Obviously, we've seen all those comments. Digital Foundry, they do an incredible job. I don't think they know how everybody in the game industry watches every single one of their videos. They do a fantastic job. And ultimately, look, we boil it down to we wanted the consistency. Game is running great, but we don't want players to ever think about it. We have obviously seen other games that have performance modes, and we lean toward consistency overall, and we talk to our fans and hear that from everybody. So we're feeling really great. Game feels great in your hands. And I would say, look, developers know this, but there are things that you can do to make that look and feel great. Things like motion blur, how fast the game refreshes or reacts to a controller input, all of those things matter to something feeling great. And I can honestly say this is the best feeling game that we've had.
So no real surprise in that answer either. I agree with Todd in that I want a more consistent flow. The last thing I want is hitching, stuttering, or even ghosting. We have all seen how that affects a game. Hell, even Fallout 4 had its share of stutters, especially when you head into the downtown Boston area. I certainly hope they have ironed this out with the new engine upgrade. The next question asked was one that I have thought of a lot. It asked about the side quests and how those are in most games, but all use the same tired routine of go kill this for this reward or go get something. Those of us Fallout players are certainly able to relate to the fetch quests. They wanted to know how Starfield tackles this concern.
Well, look, it comes down to making all of that content, and our folks have done an incredible job there, and there really is a lot of it, so we have a lot of specific quests, but it's not what you're talking about, the sort of random one-off ones. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. We obviously have a bunch of that.
Right.
You can land on a planet and go to an outpost, and we're going to generate a mission nearby, and you're going to see some of that. But I think that's okay if you know you're in for it. And those activities, if the gameplay is good, can be fun, but they shouldn't take the place of those more in-depth ones, and we've done a lot of those.
Todd's answer was kind of a letdown. Yes, I was expecting him to say that there was going to be more of the same old tired quests and stuff. However, he did say that there are some side quests that are more in depth. Just how many remains to be seen. I wish that was not the case, but let's be honest, that's Bethesda's MO. The next question shifted focus to mods. They wanted to know if we are going to be able to mod in Starfield.
Yeah, I think Starfield is going to be kind of a modder's paradise. It's part of our DNA here. We've been doing it for over 20 years. And our community around that, because look, we've usually been classically single player. That has been our community. And people are still modding our games and playing them. So we're doing a lot of it. And I think one of the things that I'll call out is it's important for us not just to enable that, but to participate, right? To make it easy for them, to make this where they can make it not just a hobby, but a career. We've had a lot of great success there. So looking forward to what everyone's going to do with Starfield, just like cannot imagine.
So this one we already knew the answer was going to be yes, but I do want to point out the part when Todd said he wants modders to not only have their hobby, but also potentially turn that into a career. I think this is pointing to what will end up being the Starfield equivalent of the Creation Club. I know there are some audible groans out there, and I'm with you. However, by that same token, paid mods also help these modders be able to continue to create the stuff that we can all enjoy. They spend a lot of time creating these things, and they should be able to monetize it in some way. The next question focused on outposts, more specifically how we build, are we limited to what resources we have, and so forth.
So outposts, kind of like I was talking about with shipbuilding, is a very deep system, and it does involve a lot of resources to really, do what you want to do. You can do all of that, so you can land on a planet and start building, but you're going to need to really go crazy. You're going to need to develop your character skills. You're going to have to collect those resources. But there is a ton there, and you can even actually somewhat connect them between planets, shuttling cargo between them. So it's a really, really cool system. But I will say again, like shipbuilding, one that has a lot of depth. It's not really meant as like an early player kind of system. It's meant to be one that you're going to play over a long period of time.
Well, that brings me on to just a quick follow-up on that. So potentially can Outposts be an economy generator for you as well?
Yes, they can.
Very insightful. So just like we saw in Fallout 4 with our settlement, we can establish trade routes between outposts, which also means that we can create multiple outposts. How many outposts we can build is the next question that I have, but I suppose we will have to wait and see on that one. That said, each one will be expensive to build, and like shipbuilding, it is a late game system. The follow-up question also let us know that our outposts can also generate stuff in terms of resources for us as well. The next question asked Todd how he feels knowing the game is almost ready for release.
But you've been through it, Gary. You have something. We've worked just so hard on it. I'll say again, the team here, many of us have done this for decades together in some cases, and we have put just everything that we think we've learned and maximum effort into this one. And look, we love it, and our fingers are crossed that everybody feels the way that we do about it. And we're just really kind of humbled by everybody's excitement for it, and it's fuel for us, over these last few months to make it, as good as it can be for everybody.
I didn't think Todd was going to be fazed by that. He has been through so many big releases that he is kind of used to it now and knows how to navigate those feelings. The follow-up question was, does he feel any pressure knowing that Starfield is going to be the standard bearer for Xbox?
I think I was feeling better before you asked that question. Look, we're focusing on what we can do, like I said, on this game. And I will say Xbox has been their support has been incredible on this, with Phil and Matt Booty and the team over there. And obviously we worked with them for a long time, going back 20 years on Morrowind. But being part of Xbox and their support has really, it has allowed us to be this ambitious and take these risks, and fingers crossed.
Once again, Todd answered as only Todd can. There were a few small questions jammed in at the end, like are there black holes, which Todd did not answer, but these questions really didn't have any real substance, so it was not really worth clipping here. What did you think about this interview? Was there anything that stood out to you? Are there some questions that you would have liked to have been asked, and if so, what are they? Sound off in the comments below. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I'm just glad you stopped by, and I'll see you in the next one.